I'm going to show you what other real estate photographers are making and how that compares to actual market trends, because I can guarantee that you probably aren't charging enough for your real estate photography, and that you could actually be charging more and also making your clients happy about it. I'm also going to share with you some of my pricing. I'm also going to talk about pricing structures, and before getting to that, we need to take a look at some misconceptions when it comes to pricing real estate photography, because there are some false rumors out there that are overgeneralized. The first thing is that you should be raising your rates probably every year, especially in this market. You know that prices have gone up everywhere, and it's to be expected that you as a vendor will also do the same. If you go to the gas station, you go grocery shopping, you go pay bills, whatever it is, you can see that all of the costs everywhere are going up. You need to do that as well, just to stay on top of everything. So that's to be expected. Also, every year you get better at what you're doing, or at least you should be getting better. And as you are getting better, you're getting to be more of a skilled, learned professional so that you can provide better quality to your clients. This is another reason why you should also be charging more, just based off your experience. Also, something you're doing is you're providing a value addition to your clients. So it's not just about taking photos. You're actually providing marketing material that is helping someone else make a lot of money during a very large transaction. To help them do that the best, be a real value addition, that's where those years of experience come in. It's not just because your costs have gone up, but also this value addition idea. So if you can actually help somebody make more money, then you should be charging more money, because you're worth it, not just for the quality of photos, but what they do in return to help someone else make a lot more money and to keep their business going as well. Another big conception about doing this is being afraid of what your competitors will be doing. If you raise your rates, if you charge too much above your competition, well, the reasoning goes that you might not get the jobs, but that is not true. In fact, your competitors would love it if you raised your rates. It's known as a collective illusion, where we think that everybody else is thinking like us. But the reason your competitors are keeping their prices low would be the same reason you're keeping your prices low, because you think everybody's going to keep their prices low. If you increase your prices, your competitors won't be afraid to do so, and then comparatively speaking, you'll be the same or more. And we're going to get to why you should be charging more, because one of the other things we have to remember when we're raising our rates is that as humans, we have this natural tendency to equate higher prices with higher quality. And inversely, we also equate low prices to low quality. So if you want to be perceived as being high quality, you need to have your rates high to begin with. And this comes with benefits, not just for you for raising your prices, but also to your clients. So obviously for yourself, raising your prices means you have sustainability. If you don't make enough money doing anything, any type of job, here we're talking about real estate photography, but it can apply anywhere. You can't have a sustainable business, period, if you don't bring in enough money. So it's worthwhile for a client knowing that if they want you around for the long term, that you have to cover your costs and also be profitable. That should be expected. And there's also the work-life balance. You don't want to be running around all the time and not spending any time with your family or having any free time. It's just unreasonable for anybody, for any job, for any type of work. And of course, then having those higher prices gives you that perceived higher quality. Now, for your clients, there are also some big benefits that if they don't realize it, you can use these things as talking points when you're discussing prices, either giving a quote or when you're raising your prices with existing clients. The first thing that's a benefit to your clients to use as a talking point is that you're going to be providing higher quality photos, which also means you're going to be providing also better customer support. So without having to take on 100 different clients, if you charge more, you can take on fewer clients, and yes, you're going to be providing then for those fewer clients better quality photos, because you can spend more time taking the photos, editing the photos. And then on top of that, You're also going to be able to concentrate more on each one of these clients so that you can provide them better customer support. You can have a more open schedule, more flexible schedule, and also be flexible when it comes to additional edits or whatnot. So just by raising your rates, yes, you will narrow down a little bit on some of the clients, but those are going to be the really good clients, the ones that know that getting something good does cost money, and that includes not just the quality of the pictures, but long-time customer service, building a business together. And that gives your clients a competitive advantage. So by getting photos as needed, not just because you're on call, but because different things will arise over time that require stellar customer support. Having that with a good vendor like yourself, who's charging more and not just trying to pander to 100 different clients all the time, running around, shooting a bunch of stuff and not making enough money, they get that competitive advantage. Your client gets that competitive advantage by having you provide this stellar type of customer service with stellar work and high quality photos. So it's a competitive advantage for them to also then get more gigs. And that also means that they're going to have a reliable vendor. Once again, if you have a sustainable business because you're charging enough for your real estate photography, that means that your clients can rely on you to be there tomorrow and also when they need you, because once again, you're not running around to a whole bunch of clients. So these are very important things to remember, that don't be afraid to raise your rates. As we start talking about these prices, don't let these prices shock you in the least. In fact, you should be charging a lot more than what your competitors are. So let's get into that. Now I have some data that shows exactly what a lot of real estate photographers are charging. I'm going to talk about also what I'm charging and also some market trends. But before getting to that, I did want to take a break here and just mention, if you're interested in learning more about pricing, running a real estate photography business, also the ins and outs of how to shoot real estate photography, how to edit it, and more, I would invite you to take a look at my courses on real estate photography. As you may know, I've got courses that cover professional interior photography, expert editing, exterior photography, videography for real estate, business and marketing for real estate, and I've also written best-selling books on real estate photography as well, and I have links to all that down in the description of this video. So when we get into the pricing here, we have to remember that there are different markets that we're going to target. I'm going to cover, for instance, the standard listing market. I'm going to talk about architectural photography, because these things will vary. So first thing you need to do is you need to get a mindset and decide, what is it that you want to do throughout the next year? Now, you may have been doing just listing photography and that's fine, and maybe you want to transition out of that. Maybe you're just happy doing listing photography, or maybe you want to do just architectural photography. Whatever it is, you do have to keep that in mind as you go forward, because that's going to really be the driver to help you decide how it is you want to structure your pricing, and also what exactly you want to charge, because this is going to vary widely. And also, there are a few things with like cost overhead, doing your COGS, your cost of good for sales. That stuff is important. It's something I talk about in my business and marketing course for real estate photography. But the most important thing is that can be adjusted based off what you can charge. So let's take a look at that. And let's start with just the simplest thing first. And let's start with just the standard real estate listing market. This is the lowest tier when we talk about the genres of real estate photography, because we've got just the standard listing market, we've got luxury real estate, we've got architecture photography, we've got commercial real estate photography, and I do basically all those, and you can too. It depends on if you're ready to do them, if you have the quality to start moving up the ladder, where you are in your career to be able to do that, and also just what makes you happy. So let's start with the very basic listing first. So here are some results from a survey I did this last year, and you've probably seen me do these surveys just about every year for the past number of years. And one of the things that was shocking, when I asked photographers if they raised their prices in 2024, 58% of photographers did, but 42% didn't, even though the costs of living increased and home prices increased, which provided realtors with higher commissions and subsequently higher budgets. When asked what a very basic shoot they charge for, well, 41% said $200 or less, and 38% said $200 to $300. But these prices are really, really low. They're much lower than they should be. In fact, notice how there's about 15% of photographers charging anywhere from $300 to $500, and that's just for a basic shoot. And those prices, that $200 range, I know a lot of people will say, that's all that's being supported in my area because there's a photo mill nearby and they only charge $120 or $150 to do a shoot. But don't price your services off of that. That is not the way to go. I'm going to get to that and delve into that in more detail. But if we take a look at just some of the national average in the United States, if we take a look at the national average, according to Ruby Home, a very basic shoot is $230, and that's the national average. If we take a look at a 2-hour shoot, a 2-hour shoot's $440 for the national average. What that means is that a basic shoot, about an hour shoot, $230, that's about $230 an hour while you're on site. Now, of course, that does include the editing, but this really helps us get a handle on what we can do to look at our pricing for doing other types of real estate photography. When we take a look at big cities, for instance, take a look at where I am in Southern California. So I'm not in Los Angeles, I'm just north of Los Angeles, but up here in Ventura County, it's not uncommon to have real estate photographers that are charging $300 to $350 an hour. In fact, my lowest price tier is $300. I won't get out of bed and go someplace unless it pays at least $300. I don't care if it's an 800 square foot condo. That pricing goes up to about 2,000 square feet. That's my 2024 pricing. My 2025 pricing is going up to $350 for that very basic shoot. And why? Well, $350 is nothing compared to the market for the prices of houses that are out here. And yes, my overhead costs are high just like everybody else's. I've got to put food on the table, gas in my car, and pay for my utilities. But we also have to remember that what you're providing is something that's a value addition to your clients to help them make more money. If I don't have a client that's worth it, that doesn't feel that it's worth paying me $300 or $350 just to go out and do a simple shoot, then that person, that client, isn't seeing the long game and they really don't respect what I'm doing. So that's very important to bear in mind. This is why don't price against your competition, because I guarantee that your competition is not going to give the same type of customer support that you can to your clients. Usually they're very overworked because they're pricing their services just so low. A lot of times those photo mills too, they just are run by somebody else that doesn't do the photography. They hire cheap photographers to go out and do the work, and it's kind of hit and miss. But with you being a reliable vendor, yes, you can charge more, and don't be afraid to do so. And this gets us into the other genres of photography. So that's just the listing market. Once again, starting out, usually about $300 in the bigger cities, $230 on average for a very small shoot, something that's not even up to 25 photos. Once again, $440 national average for doing a 2-hour shoot. But when you're taking a look at doing something more than just an hour or 2 hours long, that's when you're looking at, for instance, luxury real estate photography. You're looking at commercial real estate photography, architectural photography, and short-term rentals. This is something also that's a little bit different, but I put under this category because what you need to do is charge an hourly rate at least 2-hour minimum. So that means if someone wants to just go shoot an Airbnb, well, 2-hour minimum. What are you charging right now for a shoot? Well, if you were just charging $200 for a basic shoot, and it took you about an hour to do it, then $200 is your hourly rate. You shouldn't do an Airbnb for less than $400. If you're charging $350 for a very basic shoot, and it takes you an hour, then that's $350 an hour. That means that an Airbnb for just a 2-hour minimum shoot, if you're there, is going to be $700 for an Airbnb. So if they take longer, for instance, it's very common for these people that have short-term rentals, they're not realtors, I really don't like shooting for them anyways, to charge more. Because usually it takes them a lot longer to get ready. You could be wasting time on site. If you're working for a company that's well established and they have a bunch of short-term rentals, that's different. But anyway, we take a look at the other type of photography in this per hour rate. Luxury real estate photography, anything really over 4,000 square feet, you should be charging by the hour. You don't know how long it's going to take you just to even get a tour of the property, know where everything is, and then let alone set up and shoot everything. And yes, it could take you a while, especially if you're doing high quality work for luxury real estate photography. So doing that, smart realtors will know that this could take a while. Give a time estimate based on how long you think it will take you based off your experience, but you should be charging by the hour. So let's say, for instance, I'm charging $300 an hour to go out and do luxury real estate photography. If it takes me 3 hours to shoot a very large place, let's say it's about maybe 6,000, 8,000 square feet, doing about 3 hours, well, that would be $900 just for the photos. If they want me to come back and they want me to do a twilight, well, another $300, now we're up to $1,200 for doing this shoot. If they want drone, I have my drone guy come out, he pops another $300 out there, now we're up to about $1,500 for that luxury shoot. And that's really reasonable when you think about it. Let's take, for instance, Southern California, up here in Ventura County. If I were to be shooting an 8,000 square foot home, it would probably be about $3 to $4 million. So it's worth it in that realtor's budget to pay less than $2,000 to have really good marketing media. And of course, there are other add-ons that I can put on that for doing, some virtual tours, or I could do a floor plan or do some property videos, and all that gets added on top of it. But when we take a look at just the basic photography, if you were, let's say in your area, and houses weren't that expensive, and you were doing luxury real estate, photography, well, let's say you're charging $200 for your hour. So your basic shoot would normally be $200. Well, if you're there for 3 hours at this luxury place, then that's $600 that you should be charging. That's your estimate. You won't know exactly how much you're going to charge if you're charging by the hour. So you give them an estimate. When you're done, you send that invoice, make sure they pay it before you do any delivery of those photos. But then you have all the other add-ons that go on top of it. And this is where it gets really interesting when you're taking a look at commercial real estate. So commercial real estate photography, you're usually shooting very large buildings, and it could take you many, many hours to go through it based on what the client wants. They also may want you to go out and scout ahead of time. If it's like a hotel, if it's some other office space, whatever it is. Everything you do needs to be charged by that hourly charge. So it's not uncommon to do commercial real estate anywhere from, let's say, $400 if you're in a lower priced market, or $600 if you were out here just to go do some basic photos, all the way up into the thousands of dollars, depending on if you have to take multiple trips out there for doing some of the scouting, some of the photography, a whole lot of other stuff, working with the client to collaborate on different photos that they want, moving through, for instance, a 20,000 square foot building. And the other one is big, is architectural photography. So this is something where there's all kinds of pricing structures out there. So I can tell you what I found to be the most successful and the most accepted and the easiest to manage. And it's just like I was doing before with doing commercial and everything else. Luxury real estate, same way. Charge by the hour, give them a 2-hour minimum that you're going to charge, even if you're there for just an hour, and then work your way up from there. So I know there's this price per image type of thing. It just gets frustrating with clients that I've worked with, where it's like, well, maybe we'll just keep it to 4 photos. And it's like, okay, great. But you're really going to get some good stuff if I can take this, this, and this, and this. So instead, what I do with architecture photography, it's very common to have multiple rounds of edits instead of trying to charge this, per image. So charge them the same thing with your hourly rate, 2-hour minimum, whatever it is on site, and then do some standard edits. Send those standard edits to the client and ask them what all they'd like to have changed, including the things that they talked about possibly while you were on site. That gives you then a round to do more editing, which then costs more. And how much do you charge for editing? It's very simple. 50% of your on-site hourly rate. So charging $300 an hour on site, it's $150 an hour for editing. If you're charging $200 on site, it would be $100 for editing. So those are kind of rough estimates on what you'd be willing to do for architectural photography and also luxury photography, and all this by the hour. But it also means that you need to have your quality standard high enough to make that worthwhile. And this is the crux of the whole thing, is that you can't charge any more than what you are worth. This is where, when we're talking about competitors, sure, you don't want to be pricing against your competitors because they're always going to be priced low to have these photo mills out there. But you also can't charge more than them if your quality isn't better. So something you need to do in your initial research, if you're just starting out in real estate photography or you're ramping up, you feel you're good, you need to raise your prices, you need to look at what you're up against. So you can easily go on Zillow or any of the other listing sites and you can see what's being sold in your neighborhood. You can get an idea of what the photos are, the quality that are being produced for realtors in your area. You have to make sure that you're better than those photos. Then you can also take a look at architectural photographers in your area. You'll probably be able to Google them. You're not going to find so much on any listing site, but you're going to be able to see if your quality stands out. And then based off that, then you can decide, should I be raising my rates? How much should I be charging? For instance, let's say you're just starting out doing real estate photography. Well, just like myself and everybody else when we just started out with real estate photography, we thought we were good, and I look back at my stuff and just cringe. And I go, how did I ever think that was any good? So when you're first starting out, you need to charge basically what your competition is. That's a no-brainer. You need to be able to get some gigs. But you really should be charging a little bit more because it's going to help weed out the bad clients. If a client is after you just for price, that's not a client you want. That's a person that's just looking for a deal. They're not looking for quality. And that is a big misconception. Not all realtors are that way. A lot of them are. I do guarantee that, but as I've mentioned before throughout many videos, I mentioned this in my courses as well, is that only about 20% of realtors will make it past 2 years. And those are the ones that were smart enough to market themselves and know how to really get good listings. Those are the ones that know the value add of having a good vendor, like a really good photographer or media producer. And that's what you can become. But you do need to get your skills high enough to be able to charge enough so that you can get those type of gigs and justify why it is that you're going to charge what you will. And this then leads up to the last point, and it's how do you actually structure your prices, and should you be putting this information out there so that clients see it? Well, one of the things that you'll find very hard during your research, trying to do your competition research, is finding what they charge, because it's usually not ideal to post your prices on your website and make them public. It's not because you don't want your competitors to see that. It's because you're going to have a variety of people come to you for different types of work. You don't want some person who has a short-term rental, Airbnb or whatnot, come after you for a price that you would just give to a realtor that's going to be very ready with what they have so you can be in and out in an hour or less. You don't want to give those same prices. So the same way with architectural work, you want to keep that separate, and it is very hard to organize that online. What you want to do instead, which is more beneficial from you, is you do want to have this structure in place, but don't publicize it. You can have something that you send somebody as a price list, a PDF or a link to a web page that's not linked inside of your website that you have with your portfolio. That way you get somebody on the phone and you can sell them the idea. So this is what will happen. If you just had your prices put out there publicly and someone saw that price and go, oh my gosh, I just have an 800 square foot condo and Nathan's going to charge me $300, well, they might not give me a call. But if I had them on the phone and they go, oh, and I could hear it in their voice, I'd say, now bear in mind, that's just my minimum charge that I do, and it'd be everything up to, let's say, 2,000 square feet. So that's what I charge for a minimum to cover my overhead, but you're going to get a very high quality set of media for this. So you're going to get very high quality photos out of that $300, so it will be a worthwhile investment. So that's an opportunity for me to sell somebody on something. Now, will they bite on that? Well, I might not necessarily be the best salesman, but it's your opportunity to do that. It's at least a better chance of getting the gig than just having somebody make a decision online and never giving you a call to begin with. And then for your standard real estate stuff, there are many different ways to structure it. And I talk about some of this in the business course, and that's the most popular actually is using the square foot approach. And that's where you have usually about 3 tiers, something maybe from 0 square feet up to 2,000, then up to 3,000, up to 4,000. Beyond that then is your hourly rate. But all that is then estimated on how long it takes you or how long it should take you to shoot something, and then figuring out that hourly price and then having that price in your tier structures. And the only reason really to have that is just because of familiarity with realtors. So most realtors are used to seeing those tiers of square footage. And then when you get into the big jobs, they know that, well, there's a lot of custom stuff that's going to come along with this. They'll want to give you a call and talk about it. That's when you can talk to them and give them a quote. Either way, whether you have these pricing structure tiers, you do it all by the hour, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you get a person on the phone. You want to talk to them so that you can sell them on the idea that you are a really good photographer. You provide value. You bring something to the table more than just photos. You're going to help that person also excel in their career, because with quality photos comes also a better reputation on their part, that they are a professional who hires professional vendors, and then they can sell properties in a professional way. Any realtor, any other client that doesn't understand that, well, that's not really a good fit. Because you don't want to also waste all your time trying to chase this low-hanging fruit, the low-paying people, because you're then not going to have enough time for the higher-paying gigs. So above all else, if I were to take all this and if I were to sum it up into one thing, it's that don't undersell yourself. Don't just feel that you need to lower your prices or keep them low just because everybody else is. If you're good at what you do, you should be paid well for it. And I guarantee you, there are clients out there that will appreciate that, and they will pay you for what you're worth.